I have the honor to introduce Peggy Liu. She is the chairperson of JUCCCE, or I might want to call it JUICE, Greening China Together. So JUICE is a nonprofit organization. It's catalyzing society towards the future, and it's focusing on really a planetary health drive. If you think about it, in the last 10 years, this organization has helped to catalyze key tipping points in China through initiatives such as a smart grid and energy efficient lighting. And Peggy herself is in the service of personal and planetary health. And she's referred to as China's green goddess, at the heart of greening China. Additionally, she is the best-selling author of a book entitled Mesmerize the Media, Maximize Your Impact with More Press. And it's a provocative, it's an honest media masterclass for women. And then more recently, since 2013, Peggy has launched Food Heroes under the JUCCCE organization. But Food Heroes is, as it said, www.foodheroes.org. And this is China's first comprehensive kids' healthy food curriculum. And it's been noted for accelerating society-scale changes in diets, sustainable cities, sustainable consumerism, and this Changing Diets initiative is now a main priority of her organization. Additionally, you could look at Peggy and say she really is a window into China for many world leaders, and the exciting things that she's doing. She's also a practitioner on the personal side in the South Shaolin Inner Energy One Finger Zen Qigong. So really a variety of things Peggy is involved in. So without further ado, let Peggy share it herself. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I wish I was in Killian Court under the marble engraved names of Newton and Da Vinci. But in lieu of that, I'm so glad to be with you all here today. And I want to ask you all, do you remember what the first ever moment was when you thought about going to MIT? For me, it was at a Chinese family camp. And standing at the edge of a pond was a girl named Greer Tan, who was wearing a burgundy MIT t-shirt. I didn't even realize then that girls could go to MIT. So seeing her made me realize that it was possible. And ever since that moment in 7th grade, I knew that I wanted to go to MIT. I didn't realize what a gift this moment was until I recently heard the story of Roger Bannister, who didn't listen to any critics saying that no one could run a 4-minute mile. It was impossible, they said. And he just ignored them and busted through this limit to become the first person to break the 4-minute mile. Of course, once other people saw that he could do it, immediately other people started to run the 4-minute mile as well. What happened was they stopped imposing someone else's limiting beliefs on themselves. They started to imagine larger, more audacious possibilities. So imagination was the key to Bannister's achieving a new reality. Seeing Greer in her MIT t-shirt gave me permission to remove limiting beliefs that society places on us and taught me that we are only constrained by the limits of our own imagination. I would use this gift over and over again in life as I helped pioneer e-commerce in Silicon Valley, and as I pioneered clean energy, eco-cities, smart grids, sustainable diets, and more in China. Hi, I'm Peggy Liu, class of 1990, course 6-3, Next House. And as chairperson of JUICE, I've been at the heart of the greening of China since 2007. I've been a catalyst for societal scale change to better personal and planetary health for almost a decade and a half. But when I founded JUICE, one advisor said, Peggy will People will tell you that tackling climate change across China is an insurmountable challenge. Just ignore them. And so I did. JUCCCE has now succeeded in changing the course of China 5 times over. When I was younger, I was a very lonely kid. I was a firstborn American to immigrant Chinese parents, and I faced a lot of racist bullying in school. I didn't really go out. I didn't have many friends, so I turned to sci-fi, a lot of it, under the covers with a flashlight at night. And sci-fi to me was so magical because it showed me how technology can change the world. In fact, one person can change the entire universe. If I could just build robots like the ones in The Foundation by Isaac Asimov, I could better people's lives around the world. Do you all remember what our application question was for the class of 1990 when we applied to MIT? Who would you like to meet, living or dead? And I said Isaac Asimov. How many of you were with me in Kresge Auditorium when Isaac Asimov came to speak our freshman year? Oh my God, I'm so excited. To me, it was a sign that I was on the right path. I was home. I was at MIT. I rushed up after his speech to tell him that he was the one who inspired me to study ECS so I could build robots one day, just like in The Foundation. I remember one specific moment that changed the entire trajectory of my life. That was because I was from MIT. In 2006, when I was an officer of the MIT Club of Shanghai, Susan Hochfeld stopped here on her first international tour as president of MIT. And she declared that she was going to cluster siloed disciplines at MIT around life sciences and clean energy, because that was where MIT could contribute the most to society. I was so inspired that I produced the MIT Forum on the Future of Energy in China here in Shanghai in April 2007. This accidentally became the first public dialogues between US and Chinese government officials on clean energy. I was really surprised to hear both governments say that there were 60 memorandums of understanding for both countries to collaborate, but nothing tangible to show for it. They needed more help on the ground to facilitate programmatic collaboration. So the 400 attendees, including Bob Armstrong, head of the MIT Energy Initiative, all encouraged me not to stop at one event. And out of this, JUCCCE, or Joint U.S.-China Collaboration on Clean Energy, was born. But none of this historic moment was a part of a grand plan. That one day would change my entire career. In the course of one day, I decided to commit 10 years of my life to combating climate change in China, the most polluted country in the entire world. This one day started my journey to become what press dubbed me as China's green goddess. At the moment that I decided to found JUCCCE, and every moment after, I just listened to my gut and jumped in, magnetizing people to the mission and energizing movement after movement. In hindsight, I've learned that I needed to truly follow my heart and gut to make decisions and rely on my engineering discipline to execute. When people ask me, what did I learn at MIT that I actually use in my work today? I tell them about how after the founding of JUCCCE, the head of the Energy Committee at the U.S. President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, where Chuck Vest was also serving under George W. Bush, this guy encouraged me to introduce the concept of smart grid into China. At the time, the term wasn't even used in China. They were really focused on ultra-high voltage transmission lines. I remember writing a simple white paper, drawing out what smart grid was with a picture, including a little electric vehicle as energy storage. The China State Grid looked at that electric vehicle in May 2007 and said, that seemed a little too futuristic. Maybe I should come back in 10 years. But I persisted and drew in the CEO of Duke Energy, to the US DOE, to VPs of Cisco, IBM, and other smart grid leaders at the time to make a commitment at the Clinton Global Initiative to hold 3 smart grid forums on the ground in China to show how smart grid could benefit China. Within 2.5 years, JUCCCE revolutionized the direction of China's entire electrical grid. And today, China is now the leader in smart grid in the world. And there are over 500 smart city pilots across the country. Thank God for my EECS training. Looking back on how we accomplished this in such a short period of 3 years, I realized that there are only 2 grid companies in China. And one is Goliath, covering 80% of the landmass. That's the China State Grid. And within that, there was only one single department that looked at innovative technologies. And in that department, there were only 2 people authorized to talk to foreigners. So by surrounding these 2 people with experts and by creating a safe space to talk about possibilities, to help them imagine an audacious vision that wasn't even in their field of vision before, we were able to get State Grid to commit $7.2 billion into implementing smart grid across China by 2020. That's today. When I speak around the world as a window into China's green journey, I use smart grid as one example of how China has been going through gigascale change at gigapace. I tell people that China is a new country every 5 years. Now, COVID-19 has thrown the entire world into a massive roller coaster of change, and the pace of change is accelerating. It's my belief that humanity will be facing radical changes over the next 5 years. President Reif, in an email to MITers this week, called MIT a community with an essential commitment to work together to address humanity's greatest challenges. I say that dealing with this rapidly accelerating gigascale change, whether from COVID or climate change, is humanity's greatest challenge. Change is the only constant we can count on now. So get comfortable with not being attached to anything, to anyone, to any self anymore. Resilient people won't be constrained by any traditional limiting images of success. Resilient people will use their curiosity and sense of wonder to imagine into being whole new ways of life. Resilient people will use their gut, not just their brain, to help them get there. I see an opportunity for jobs that help people deal with this change in personal relationships, in health, in jobs, and in mental states. Jobs that focus on compassion, creativity, and connectivity are the ones that are really going to make a difference in people's lives and, ironically, differentiate us from robots. One of the most astounding successes of JUCCCE was when we started a countrywide series of conversations to retell the story of sustainability by reimagining prosperity. This led to the national slogan, China Dream, on billboards everywhere. I once asked my nanny, Cui Fengqing, who must be over 65 or 67 now, what was her dream when she was younger? She was sent from the urban city of Shanghai to a rural village to plant rice for 7 years during the Cultural Revolution. She couldn't go to school, so she tried to read to educate herself. There was famine across the country, and once a year, the government would come by and give the household frozen eggs so they could make egg dumplings and have protein to celebrate Chinese New Year. When I asked her, what was your dream when you were younger? She said she didn't have one. She didn't dare to have one because they were only worried about day-to-day survival. In 2010, I started to lead, with the help of advertising agencies, this series of conversations on what prosperity could look like. For me, crafting the China Dream conversations meant giving permission to everyone that they could have a dream. We asked them to ignite their imagination, to paint a world that filled them with joy. I learned that to change people's behavior, we have to stop speaking to people's heads and speak to people's hearts. We focused people's attention not on what we didn't want in their lives, but on creating a new love story between people and planet. I call this storytelling for a purpose, where imagination becomes reality. To lead this China Dream initiative in this direction, I had to first make a huge shift in myself to open up to my emotions. My greatest learning is that to transform the world, we must first transform ourselves. We need to remove the barriers that separate us from one another. We need to connect through our hearts and not just our minds. Although I went to MIT, Although I went to MIT to change the world, now I realize that the true technology is in my heart. There were at least 2 people at MIT that were larger than life who I met. For me, one of these people was Bob Metcalfe, who invented the freaking Ethernet in 1973. I remember exactly when I met him, sitting at a dinner table together after an MIT CDC meeting. His energy field seemed to extend beyond him, beyond the round table, to fill up the entire room. He said that he was class of 1968, so I excitedly exclaimed that, hey, I was born in 1968, to which one of the MIT executives frowned. But Bob just laughed and smiled a huge smile, and he later asked me to join the board of MIT Technology Review with him, where I had the pleasure of working together with him to make the magazine independently governed. And when Steve Kirsch, the inventor of the optical mouse and founder of InfoSeek, and I worked together on MIT Fundraiser, we asked Bob Metcalfe to be there with us, along with President Chuck Vest and Buzz Aldrin. I remember sitting there at the collection of alumni and being in utter awe of the legacy this group was leaving behind. And Steve Kirsch and I were later talking about what we wish we had the chance to learn at MIT. He said, sales. And I said, how to connect as humans. I told him a story about how at the start of my freshman year, a few guys and I were hanging out late at night on some steps. And one asked, are girls really as complicated as quarks? This led me to write the plan for an extracurricular program that I codenamed Charm School. Steve then took it to MIT and pushed it into existence. I thought it was going to be renamed when it was implemented. It wasn't. If I were to look back on the day I entered MIT in 1986, I would tell myself the secrets that I know now to shaping the world, one person at a time. I would say to myself, focus all your energy and imagination on the world as you want it to be. Stop worrying about all the reasons why you won't succeed. Single-mindedly focus on the world that you want, as if it were real now. I would say to myself that to create the world you want starts with your own imagination, magnetizing like-hearted people to dream with you, to act as one together. I would say to myself, when you feel powerless and swept away by seas of change, remember that all humans have the extraordinary power to create. At every now moment, you are unintentionally creating the world you live in. Where you focus your attention is the intention that creates your world. Your mind doesn't remember this, but your heart does. I would say to myself, now that you know that you have the power to shape the world, you have the responsibility to create good ones. Thank you so much, MIT Class of 1990, for giving me the opportunity to speak to you, and I can't wait for social time.